Good morning and welcome to our Monday, April 11th, 2022, 9 a.m. strategic planning meeting. Let the record reflect that we have all three commissioners. We have our executive management team, and we have been joined by, I'm going to let you guys all state your names for the record.
Ryan Dosh, Spokane County Elections.
Vicki Delton, Spokane County Auditor.
Mike McLaughlin, Spokane County Elections.
Randy Bischoff, Spokane County Deputy Auditor.
Thank you all. It's exciting to have us all back in the conference room today. So as we start to, figure out kind of our hybrid method, I guess, of doing these meetings. So happy to be back. So we're going to start off this morning with Mike McLaughlin on Presafe Boundaries and Vicki Dalton.
Okay, well, once every 10 years, the entire nation gets to redistrict. And that means that elections officials get to try and make precincts fit into those new district boundaries. So that's what we've done. So we've taken what the state lines are and what the new county commissioner and adjusted our precincts. This year, we're going to have a lot of new precincts, in part due to the changes in the lines, in part due to the growth of population in this area. So we will be going from 362 current precincts to we are proposing 438 precincts. So an increase of 76. And Mike and Ryan will take you through the details.
So what we did is in altering precincts, first we looked as if they were impacted. Is like over the, because eight precincts were split by legislative lines and 10 were split by the county commissioner redistricting lines. But as far as name changes and those type of things go, out of the 362 precincts, 205 were not changed or affected. 157 precincts were affected by just the altering and renaming of legislative districts. So they switched, so we had to change the precinct names.
So just a reminder for precinct names, the first digit is the legislative district. So if your 4-digit, I'll use mine, 4428. So that means that my precinct is in the 4th legislative district. So the first digit is the legislative district. The second digit tells us which municipality you're in. 0 means it's unincorporated area. And then depending on your ledge district, that second digit again tells us what municipality you're in. So my current numbering is 4428. So 4th legislative district. 4 in the 4th ledge means city of Spokane Valley. And then the last 2 digits are just the sequencing number. So when we talk about name changes, that's what we're talking about. So if your precinct was in the 4th legislative district and it's now in the 6th legislative district, that numbering system is going to change. Your first digit at a minimum is going to change, and likely the entire sequence is going to change. So when we say names, that's what we're talking about.
So by law, precincts have to be in this single congressional district, so it can't split on that. We're all in the 5th. It has to be in a single legislative district, so we can't have a precinct that's 2 legislative districts. That also has the county commissioner district have to be wholly in any city or town, has to be wholly within the precincts. And then we went down and looked at school district boundaries, fire district boundaries, and then other special purpose districts. So that basically taxing TCAs, taxing code areas to draw these precinct lines. We also looked at any precinct that had existing over 1,000 voters. And if it was possible to split it logically, we did for future growth. We also looked at that. And any precinct that had less than 500 voters currently in it, we'd look to see if we could add that to other precincts around to get the number of voters up. Because part of the reasons is we started getting public records requests for voter counts by batch. So then if we count on a single day and a single batch only has one voter from that precinct, we had to redact it out and hide how that voter. So that's what the precincts with smaller voter counts were more likely to get less voter counts in one day or one day batch. So that was one of the reasons we also looked at combining these increasing voter counts in small districts and then lowering it in the higher ones too, because we have 1,500 voters is what our maximum number is. So we looked at anything that was over the 1,000 mark.
So and it's the law that sets that 1,500 registered voters as being the maximum. And so we work hard at not exceeding that maximum. And we generally do that review every 2 years anyway. So every 2 years, we're constantly doing a review for, are we approaching the maximum? And then we will split precincts that are getting too large for the number of registered voters. So this is something that we do every 2 years.
Then also part of this, it says the city of Spokane is not required to do their redistricting until this year. So we will be going through, and if they change their council district boundaries, we will be looking at these again within the city of Spokane and making any alterations that way. Because if we did look at them for our purposes, but we knew they were possibly changing. So if we could put them off till next year, we did that too. So the city of Spokane didn't quite follow the criteria on the upper end, but we did split them if they were over 1,300 and did that. So we do have people coming in and looking at it and providing public comment. We have looked at their comments and that, and some of the comments were good. Some of them, they didn't follow what we were trying to do with tax and code area or the number of voters. So this is what we're gonna propose, is the maps that are all on our website, and they're in this office also.
Okay, and so how many, you said, go back on the number of precincts, you said now 8, but were because of legislative lines.
Yes, eight precincts, ledge line split through precincts. So with those that were.
Okay, and that against the state law that requires those to
Right.
be wholly within. Same with the county commissioner districts.
But they changed, they changed the switch ledge districts of precincts, so that changed a lot. So that's what with our naming requirements caused a lot of changes too for names.
Yes, yeah, because there's a lot of changes in Spokane County for legislative districts, so. Yeah, I was one of them.
I was too. So was Al. All three of us are in different ledge districts.
And technically, everyone in
Unfortunately,
the
we still
county,
have the third. Don't know how that happened.
and
I'm just kidding.
every voter's gonna get a new county commissioner district. They switch, there's nothing that's the same, so everything's switched.
Right,
So how many precincts do we have now and how many are we going to?
Yeah, I was hoping we could do that number again.
362 is what we currently have. And we're going to 438.
Just looking here, I mean, I can see there's some that make complete sense. I mean, I'll just point to the Wandermere area as a perfect example. Out Hatch Road, I mean, there were some monster precincts out there, and I see how you split it up, and I think you guys did a very good job out there. Makes a lot of sense on, I mean, when you look at where the neighborhood batches are, what you would consider a neighborhood if you were actually in those areas. I mean, you guys did a really good job out the Wandermere area. Is there anything in the way precincts or the way they're drawn to where you should be able to travel wholly within a precinct without having to go out of it and back in to get to another half of it? Yeah, I mean, if that makes any sense. I mean, that they're, when you look at the, a box and say that's a precinct, but in order to get from this side to this side, there is no direct road. You have to travel outside of it and come around in another road on the other side. Is there anything to try to prevent that? Do you try to make it so you can easily travel within a precinct?
We look at that, but what we're most what priority is, they're voting on the same district.
Mhm.
So a precinct consists of the same voting. So it's, you know, we don't want them, there's, I don't know how many different districts, but it goes, because that's all we have to do it is looking down into the TCA taxing code area, basically. So we want to combine as a voting area. I mean, we are vote by mail. It's not poll site, so we don't have to worry about them going to where their poll site is as much anymore. It's more are they voting on the same area? That's what, so their ballot's gonna be the same.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
it's that combination of districts, because remember, we've got a congressional district, then you've got a legislative district, then you've got whether you're city or unincorporated, then you've got school districts, then you've got fire districts, then you've got water districts, then you've got cemetery districts.
PTBA, when in the outer county part, the PD of it is a big
Mhm.
splitter of precincts because it goes up and down is what following. Water districts are another, because water districts are not wholly districts. They're like Whitworth Water District can go from Whitworth out to Spokane Valley. They buy and sell things, so they're not connected. The water district can be anywhere, you know, basically they have a well and can service people that way. They buy and sell and what they're in that way.
So every time one of those district changes, let's say we have one precinct and this can happen, there can be 4 different school districts in a precinct. That means at a minimum, we're gonna have 4 different ballot faces for the same precinct. So that does increase costs, it increases overhead, it increases complexity. And it sometimes can confuse the voters because they're in the same precinct and the guy across the street is getting a different ballot than the guy across the street. And so we do get phone calls about that. So I think, what's our worst precinct from like 2011, 2012? We had one precinct that had what, 18 splits in it?
16 splits.
That would be mine.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, we're talking the potential for 16 different ballot faces. So it can get complex and difficult to manage. And so what we're trying to do is keep those number of splits down as much as possible. And by splits, we're not talking about actually cutting a precinct and making separate precincts. We're talking about having one precinct with different ballot faces that are necessary.
But we did look at, you know, is what you're talking about is the travel part. But it also is a lot of that we took a precinct and split it that way. It'd unbalance, there'd only be 28 voters in that precinct based on the other criteria. So from election administration point of view, it's easier just to put them all together and they're voting on the same items in that.
So it's cleaner administratively, and it's also cleaner from reporting out results too.
And I don't know if you guys know this right off the top of your head, but population or voter wise, what's your largest number within a precinct and what's your lowest number? Because I think there's currently today, isn't there a precinct with like 4 voters in it?
I think they got rid of that.
We were able to get rid of that.
You got rid of, okay, what's the lowest number now? Do you think, roughly.
5, they had a child.
Yeah.
One precinct is, I mean, in the Meade Kaiser area,
Okay,
because that's all, it's non-developed and all of that, but it's a large area and that's probably gonna be the lowest
okay.
number now. But I mean, it was a weird thing. There's no logical way to combine it with anything else.
That area is now bounded by a new legislative district line and a new county commissioner district line, kind of made, right by Kaiser. So I think that area has 40 or 50 registered voters would be the smallest now.
I think I'm looking at it probably 60, 56 is my guess. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of residential around there.
So the precinct with only 4 voters in it, that was mine.
Yeah.
And when I was with the city council and stuff, and it was always great to get 100% of the precinct. All 4 of them.
So the end of Phelps Field.
But that's gonna go in, I mean, it's still a weird one, but that's gonna go in the precinct across the river. Is I don't know, it's gonna be 4034 is what the new precinct is. Because, yeah, it's Fire 9.
That's always
Was
my
it
favorite.
was it's different school district, so is that Fire 9, which is across the river, surrounded by the city of Spokane and Millwood and Fire 1, so.
So
Doorbell
roughly,
that you expect to swim.
Okay.
so roughly how many, and you can guess a little bit on this, guys. So roughly how many precincts did we have that are currently over 1,200 or 1,300?
100? I mean, there was a lot.
A lot? Okay, so almost a third of our precincts are pushing a point they need to be split anyway,
Oh, yeah.
which we would have done in the every 2-year cycle anyway.
But I mean, it's also looking at that, is it, I mean, like the city of Spokane, if you have 1,100 people in a precinct and there's no room for growth, so there's no apartment buildings or anything going in there, that's not gonna change. It hasn't changed over 10 years. It's not gonna change it because it's at capacity.
Yeah.
So that's,
You made a reference earlier that if there's development planned, you try to draw the precinct. In the past, didn't you tend to wait until the development did happen before you did that?
No.
Because I thought when we had split some precincts back in 2017 timeframe, I thought we had some folks testify that said, you know, there's a big development planned here, or there's going to be development here. And I thought the response was, well, we'll wait until it happens and then split the precinct.
it depends on the area and what they're doing. I mean, we know right now in the valley is by the medical park out there is the apartment buildings are going up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just within the year, they'll be done and then that'll all grow. So we can plan on all those areas.
Because you're looking at permits. that have been-
Permits, but also look at the plating. Has it already been platted? So then we know, you know, this will all change again in 2025 when UGA boundaries change, and so that'll affect it all again. That's what's going on, so.
And so you've referenced the 11 to 1,200 population. Is that the peak you like to get to before you look at splitting? And would you, I mean, do you like 600 people precincts? I mean, if you get one at 1,200, you cut it in half, now you have 2 at 600. Is that too low? Would you prefer one higher than that? Do you wait till they get substantially above 1,200 to cut them so you have 2 still good sized precincts? Or?
We want it as efficient as possible, so if we don't have to do a ballot face for 2 different ballot faces for that, but then it's just at that 1,200 in there it's like a lot of the changes, we knew that the area is gonna grow, but we knew it was gonna be a straight line. And then it's gonna be 50-50 on the split. So we, you know, as it went up, you know, the population kept going, we knew where we would be able to split it logically. So then that's it, then, but we don't wanna, you know, a 1,200 precinct, 800, 400.
Yeah.
We try splitting it so it's an equal
Okay.
number that way.
So we may end up with 600 precincts, but we know that within the next couple of years, those are probably gonna top 1,000.
Okay.
Because we're looking at those building permits and we're looking at what's being platted and what's being developed. So yeah, they may end up 600, but it's only gonna be for a short time until they increase again. So we're constantly looking out into the future to try to figure out what each one of these precincts will look like within the next 2 to 4 years.
So you're gonna leave the maps, there's maps at the front desk for if anyone wants to come in and take a look at them if they don't want to go online for some reason.
Right, that are already there, so.
Perfect. And we'll have a public hearing tomorrow on the maps, and you're taking public comment at this point in time, and then we'll be voting on, I think it's the 19th.
19th is what,
So the public is welcome to come down and take a look at the maps, to look at them online, to call the elections office with any questions or comments, or the commissioner's office. We're happy to help as well. And then we'll have the public hearing tomorrow and vote on it on April 19th. Thank you.
thank you.
So Vicky, one thing I heard on Saturday evening was that evidently the Dropbox at East Central Community Center has been stolen. So you might have somebody swing by there and confirm that and stuff, but I heard that.
We did that.
Huh?
We did that,
You did that?
yes.
Oh, okay.
You vandalized our own Dropbox.
All right, then I'm reporting you.
We moved it to Liberty Park Library.
The East Side Library closed and they opened the new Liberty Park Library, and so it's moved over to the new Liberty Park.
So
Library.
we'll do a big public release before the ballots go out so that everybody knows where everything is. But thank you for letting us know.
Hey, I'm
And
here
we're-
to serve.
No, I mean, is the drop boxes that already, I mean, with City of Spokane now and their construction scheduled remodeling. So if the library is open, there is a drop box at the library, and they are only at libraries.
Okay, just passing information.
And
along.
those,
Well, thank you, we appreciate it, and we probably need to put a great big sign right where it used to be that
Yes.
says it's now,
Yeah,
yes, thank you.
yes, yeah.
We appreciate it, because we want everybody to know where their Dropboxes are.
There you go.
And not everybody goes online to look, but they'll also be listed in the materials with the ballots.
Okay,
the libraries are pretty good too about their drop boxes that they put where the nearest location they move to, with the ones that they're remodeling and the ones they moved.
Thank you. Appreciate
you.
all the information. Appreciate your time this morning. Okay, so next on our agenda is Lori Markham with sharing between Fairchild Air Force Base and Shrek. And I see Lori. Hi, Lori.
Hi, good morning. How's everyone?
Good.
So the last time you saw me was a couple months ago, and I brought forward that we were hoping to allow Fairchild Air Force Base to be a primary PSAP. We are currently the only ones in the county that are considered a primary PSAP, but Fairchild had made the request. It's pretty common around the rest of the state with the different bases throughout for them to basically become their own PSAP and be able to use that 911 number instead of a 10-digit phone number. I also told you the last time that I met with you that I didn't think I was going to need anything from you, and I was not truthful. I do. So after we talked to the state and we worked with Fairchild, it became clear that we needed to make sure that we had an NDA in place, which is what we have for you today, and we needed that signed by the county as well as ourselves. What that is for is an agreement for us and the military state 911 office, as well as Fairchild, that basically says we all understand that we're going to be sharing some information back and forth because of the 911 system and the EZNet system. Along with that, there's a vendor that is used for that, and they're going to have some of our information as far as security, things like that, and we need to make sure that we all agree that we're going to keep that safe. And so we need signatures from you fine folks to be able to get that out to Fairchild. We had one previously with the county as Spokane County 911. However, as we were looking through our documents, we realized that we never made that change when Shrek became its own agency. So you have two of them, one for Fairchild Air Force Base, but you also have one for us as Shrek that says that you agree that we can have that information and that we won't share stuff back and forth. Just kind of some housekeeping and cleanup so that we have our own document and aren't having to find a resolution to back it up. So.
Good. Thank you.
It's on our consent agenda.
Yeah, is it on our consent agenda for tomorrow?
It is.
Next week. Okay, it's on the consent agenda for next week. So
Correct.
So has your board approved this? Since you've got an independent board?
Yes, they did. They approved it. They approved it a couple months ago, agreed this is the right path for Fairchild Air Force Base. This is kind of the last item we need to get to the state. So once you approve it, we'll put our signature on it, which we've been approved by our board to do, and we'll get that off to the state to make it official.
Okay, very good. I see Mark raised his hand because he was going to be my next person to ask.
Thank you. I just wasn't sure if this had gone through legal yet. I know I hadn't seen it, and I just, Laura, didn't know who you maybe had sent this to.
We had our legal look through it and verified it, as well as the state's legal. I had not sent it to anyone at the county as of yet. I had sent it
Commissioners,
to Scott, but I'm not sure if Scott moved it forward. So
no problem. I'm happy to have our team look at it, commissioners,
Okay.
if that's what you'd like. And
Yes.
we'll be ready for that for next week.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, Mark, if you could make sure that you guys have looked through that, because like I said, that was going to be my next question, is make sure you guys had. So with that, if you can get it, just give us the briefing by Monday, so that way we know we can keep it on the consent agenda, or maybe by Friday.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Any other questions? Nope, seeing none. Thank you very much, Lori. Appreciate it.
thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, you too. Okay, next on our agenda, we've got Jeff McMorris, Marion Schmidt to talk about ARP.
Good morning. I'm just going to pass it over to Ariane to do the update today.
Okay,
Good morning,
Mary.
Commissioners. Yes, good morning. We just have a few items we wanted to share with you. There is something on your consent agenda for tomorrow, and it is a letter of support in the form of resolution as requested by the SERB board related to the grant that we submitted about a week and a half ago. We had submitted to them the resolution in March indicating our intent to allocate ARP funds for broadband that we thought would be sufficient, but they have a particular template that they wanted to use. We've run that through county legal. They've approved that. And so we just wanted to make you aware of that kind of housekeeping resolution so that we can go ahead and forward that on to the SERB board for that grant. Just to remind you, if Ron, you want to put it up? The grant in total would be $50,000 from SERB, and then a matching $12,500 from the county. That would be something we could pull from the ARP matching, because it is directly related to broadband. This is a precursor or complementary activity that we will be using in preparations for our large Washington State Commerce broadband office solicitation that we hoped will come back out in May or June of this year. In addition, just as a reference, the SERB board also did request a letter of support from our ADO, and GSI as our ADO did supply that, so we will be accompanying that as well. So once again, just wanted to make sure that you knew this was a little bit of an add-on from something you approved a couple of weeks ago. Any questions?
I'm good.
Wonderful. The last thing, Jeff, myself, and the grants office with Erica and Heather are reviewing our first RFP that closed last week, and that is for the application portal. We should have those reviewed and a recommendation for you next week for approval that will then allow us to get that application portal, which is a fully kind of encaseable component for all of our future ARP processes, that does include any ongoing updates from the federal government and does allow us definitely some added benefit in our reporting functions back to the state for those that become subrecipients. So this is just a update that will be before you, our recommended firm on the consent agenda next week. If you feel that we want to have additional interviews, we sure can do that at that time. But if you're ready to approve that next week, we can then move forward in getting the application set up and implemented. We'll have two other applications that will be closing next week, just as a heads up. That will be the water infrastructure and the educational opportunities. Those close on April 20th. Anything else, Jeff, that I forgot?
Did you want to touch the BAT team a little bit?
Thank you. I knew there was one other thing. The other thing we will be working on this week is the creation of a broadband action team. That is really just a signified consortium that assists for public sector broadband activities. We will be utilizing the Washington State University Extension. Jeff and myself will continue to be the facilitation leads at Spokane County, but that is something very highly looked upon by the state broadband office when you are doing any sort of broadband initiatives of any size. So once again, that will be something that we will be kicking off formally. We've had some informal discussions with them a couple of weeks ago, and they were really excited at how things are progressing. We've received some of the MOUs back from the small cities. Jeff, I'm not sure how many, formalizing their agreement to do this as a joint process. But once again, this is just adding layer upon layer of confirmed coordination for the South County and eligible West Plains broadband initiative.
So with the new group, the broadband action team, your client at BAT. So how's the Washington State University Extension Office part of that? I guess I don't know that yet.
So they have some sort of designated role. I don't quite understand it. We're going to look into that with the state broadband office, where they are, I wouldn't call them subject matter experts, but they are kind of confirmation of coordination experts. It's kind of like a status. You can think of it as some of the things that we had to do with our integrated managed care rollout with Kathleen Torrella's office. You got these certain, yes, you have these committees in place. It's very similar to that. And WSU has some sort of arrangement that they have resources that can come alongside the local public entities and verify they're doing this in the most best practices way possible. So it one of those. As we learn more, we'll let you know. It's really no funds are incurred. It really, once again, is just a checkbox that will be on that Washington State broadband notice of funds available that will come out in April, May, June, along with like the sites survey study and things like that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So as you become more involved with the effort to extend broadband, I mean, I think it becomes, well, I don't know. In my mind, it's a little unrealistic to think that we're going to be able to get broadband hardwired to every part of the county from a central location. So I just encourage you to keep in mind that, you know, the county owns, I think, 28 towers throughout the county as part of our emergency communication system that can be used for microwave dishes to get broadband to some of the more rural areas and stuff. So I just want to make sure that's on your radar.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's really a great call out. And as part of this initiative, we have reached out to Liberty School District and Chief Rohrbach in Fire District 3, because we want to make sure that in addition to residents, farms, local businesses, and local government, we are extending it as much as possible to schools and first responders. And to your point exactly, to enhance that as we can.
Okay.
Great. Any other questions or comments? No. Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. I know seeing your weekly updates, you're doing a lot of work, and I appreciate all the efforts that you guys are putting in.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mark, I see you unmuted, so I don't know if you have a question or comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just preparing for the next topic.
Okay. No worries. Okay. Well, we're a little ahead of schedule, but I see Scott Chesney's on, so we will go ahead and our next item will be Mark McLean and Scott Chesney to talk about the Kaiser aluminum title notice extinguishment update.
Thank you. Stanley Schwartz from Witherspoon Kelly has once again reached out, and he's working with Kaiser Aluminum to continue their title cleanup. In particular, what we're asking you to do is recognize a notice, title notice extinguishment, extinguishing the 2010 development agreement, which was replaced by a subsequent agreement. And that's all we're simply doing, is acknowledging that on their title report so they can get that cleaned up. That's all I have on that, unless there's some questions.
Okay, and then I think that's scheduled for next week's consent agenda.
That's right. And if since we are ahead of schedule, if you wanted me to, I could touch on number 7 also. That doesn't necessarily need to be an executive session unless you have some specific questions.
Okay. Yeah, and Scott Chesney, do you have any other comments for that?
Good morning, commissioners. No, the planning and building has no objection to this. As council said, this is fairly straightforward, recognizing that a more recent development agreement replaced one in the past. So no issues on our side.
Great.
With your permission, Madam Chair, I would move to item 7.
Yeah, let's go ahead and since you're ready, let's go ahead and move to item 7.
Thank you. As you'll recall, you executed an MOU related to the opioid settlement. There was some additional cleanup language in a subsequent MOU. As you can imagine, there's 39 entities, or more than 39 entities, 39 counties plus cities and municipalities trying to work through this MOU. So there were a couple of changes. They were not substantive, and we would continue to recommend that both we and our outside legal counsel continue to recommend that you sign the MOU. That'll be item 5C on tomorrow's consent agenda.
So that is scheduled for tomorrow. And so you cleaned up the language on that.
It's a big effort. It's not just us, it's our outside counsel and all the other potential entities involved. So as you can imagine, there's been a few changes to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And that'll be on tomorrow's. Let's see. Perfect. Any other questions or comments? No. Right.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. So next on the agenda, I don't know if we have Doug. I see we have Chris has joined us, but we're ahead of schedule. So
Al's miscellaneous.
we could get the miscellaneous stuff. Why don't we go ahead and do that? We will delay. And then we'll go ahead and do the miscellaneous items that are on today's agenda. So Al, I'll let you take it away.
Okay, so there are actually 2 requests, 2 different pots of money here. One is a letter of support for the airport, 14.3 million, and for RAISE grant. This is a discretionary grant application process, and it's going through the Department of Treasury and stuff. And so this is basically in support of the RAISE grant that the airport has already applied for. So it's a support of their grant. So pretty straightforward in terms of letter of support. It's basically, roadway improvements and things like that. So anyway, that's one of them.
Okay.
And then the other one is letter, and I don't, Jeff, do you have the letter with us anymore? Jeff?
I do not have the letter.
Okay, who has it?
This is the letter for the airport expansion.
Yeah, the Trex project.
I believe Steve would have had it.
Okay, whoever has it, cough it up. No, so.
Mary, I thought you had the letter.
Well, I'll give you an overview of it and stuff. So week before last, Jeff, and correct me if my memory is a little weak here. I'm not sure who started this ball rolling. It might have been John Colton, but it could have been Jeff. It could have been somebody else. The the topic was, what would be your top funding request for earmarks from Murray, Cantwell, and McMorris Rogers. And so I went through all of mine and said, Trex, the airport expansion project, and Colton floated that to Murray and Cantwell and Rogers, and they all said, yeah, that'd be a great project. And so all three of them have expressed support of it over various points in time. And so John wanted a letter of support from the county, and then also letters of support from business community members. And so Vista's writing a letter in support of it. Ezra Eckhart with STCU and a couple others are also submitting letters of support for the Trex project. So that's what that one's about.
Okay, and I think with that, we all three have different projects that
Yes.
we're putting forward.
Right.
So I would say if we're gonna do a letter of support, we would do one for all three of them, or each of us individually. I think we can't just do it for one, we have to do it for all of them.
Well, yeah, so my suspicion is that we'll end up with one for each project, is kind of the assumption I'm working under.
Okay.
Because they'll go to different people for review and stuff. So if we do trying to include all three of them in one letter, then we run the risk of it just going to one individual and the other two locked out. So is that an accurate statement, Jeff?
This letter, which Steve just got to me, which I got to Ron, and I apologize, Steve had sent it to me. I found it when he sent it to me also. But this letter, this is actually the airport is making this request. This is not one of the requests from the three commissioners. The airport is making this request. Most of the offices of Senators Cantwell, Murray, and for Kathy McMorris Rogers are requiring letters of support. So last week we were rounding up letters of support for the three projects that each of you have identified that will come from the county. This is a letter of support from the county supporting the airport's request of this. So we won't have letters. I'm filling out the forms for the three requests that were provided to me from each of you. And then we have rounded up letters like this from other third parties to support your requests. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm talking in a circle.
Thank you for the clarity. I got the two of them confused because the other priority project, at least from my standpoint, is the Craig Road project. So you're right. This is letter is in support of the airport's request.
And we traded letters with the airport. They have written a letter in support of Craig Road. We've written a letter in support of this, and we have 2 to 4 letters for each of your projects from different community organizations.
Okay, thank you. That makes more sense that this is in response to the airport's request.
Yeah.
So. Okay. So do we need a motion to approve the signing of those letters? It's something other than a public meeting.
So move.
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and a second to sign the letter for the airport race grant letter of support. Just because I haven't had a chance to look through it, I just want to make sure I get a chance to look through it. And then for the airport's letter of support for the airport regarding their congressionally directed spending for the airport expansion. All those in favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you. We will look at those and get those letters of support here in the next couple of days. I just want to make sure that we have a chance to review them, and then we'll get them signed by all 3 of the commissioners.
Then after we get through with item number 5, I've got one other miscellaneous item I want to bring forward.
Okay. Okay, well, we are a little bit ahead of schedule, but we have both the gentlemen, I think, that are here to speak to our next topic, which is Vista Stadium construction design. So we've been joined by Doug Chase with our Parks Director and Chris Duff, President of Spokane Indians. So thank you both.
Morning.
And Doug, I'll let you go.
Great. Well,
You may recall, commissioners, one of the items that we had discussed a while back was looking at on the short-term side, the completion of bid documents for capital improvements there at Vista Stadium. And my recollection is we concluded that where staff was tasked to explore other partners for potential funding of these improvements, including the Spokane Indians. And I think they are at a point where they wish to share some information along that lines of the next steps in completing those design documents. So
Absolutely.
I'll turn it over to Chris.
Before I get to that real quickly too, just want to say thank you. Appreciate the time. Good to see everybody in person.
Yeah.
It's been a while, so thank you for that. I appreciate your attention just to this topic overall as well. I continue to remain confident with collaboration, continued communication. I think we're going to get where we need to get on the stadium. So I'm proud to say that this weekend we hosted our first professional baseball games in April since 1982, which is pretty exciting. We hosted over 8,000 people Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So all three of those events were the largest gatherings in Spokane. So something I'm pretty excited about. Today, as Doug said, we're here to discuss really phase two, the design of that piece too. And I believe Commissioner French, you brought up the concept of, both parties having skin in the game, which I think we definitely agree with. I think it's the right move for us as well. We think it's time to get this project moving forward. So the Indians are ready to contribute half of the targeted $350,000 for the design of phase two. So we're ready to commit $175,000 towards that project to get it moving forward. The one assumption and then one request would be, this is assuming that we don't go out to a ballot measure and the funding doesn't get reimbursed, the Indians would contribute half. So our request would be that, if it does get reimbursed through a ballot measure, that we would get reimbursed as well. And then the other understanding that it's going to take a little bit of time, I think, to get this process rolling. Doug, it's a few weeks to go out to an RFQ. We would also ask that our 175, if we could look to maybe June, July for our contribution to come at that time, just so we can get in a little bit better financial footing and get our season underway. So yeah, that was the news I wanted to share today. Is we're ready to move forward. We're ready to contribute to that project. So we appreciate you guys bringing it up and giving us the opportunity.
Thank you. And Doug, can you just talk about the timing of
Yes.
the design side of it, why it's important to get it going now and all of that?
Yes, the next step would be, we would need to go through a RFQ, or excuse me, an RFP process in order to select a firm. And our intent would be to go through that process so we could select a firm to complete the next phase of actual design documents. But through that process, we would hope to select a firm that could also be available to help with future phases. It is a 9 to 10 week process to go through from the time we begin to the time we would expect to be completed. And so with that in mind, it would be very helpful for future phases if we could go through that selection process once and have the option to use that firm for additional phases down the road. So we would look at that approach. And of course, we need to have those design documents in hand in order to commence with the next phase of construction at the site at whatever point in time we might be ready. And I think we've estimated the whole timeline for those documents after we've selected. There's another, I think, four months in there. So it takes a little bit of time to have these documents done and ready. So.
Thank you. Any questions from commissioners?
The last presentation that we received on this, it was 450 for architectural design. You think that's going to be 350 now?
The little asterisk, the fine print, we had about 20-25% for construction management. So if we pull that out at 350, we're roughly at 350 if we pull that amount out. So we're optimistic that should be enough to cover the design only.
Okay.
And we could look at phasing in the construction side at a later time.
Okay, sounds good.
Any other questions or comments? I guess I would just say, thank you for your willingness to participate, because I think that was the request that came forward. So appreciate that. Excited that the season got started. A little chilly, I think.
A little chilly. I just got a picture from our team in Tri-Cities. Their field is covered in snow this morning and they have opening day tomorrow. So well, yeah, we did better than they did. So
Very good.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. So you said 8,000 people over the weekend.
yeah, over 8,000 over the weekend, which was really good. It exceeded our expectations. Friday's opening night crowd was really strong. Yeah, and it, especially given it snowed multiple times on both Saturday and Sunday. Yeah, we're very excited to have that many people out.
Yeah, no, very good. Well, I think, I mean, I'm willing to have us move forward with the design to get that RFP out, because I know it's timing is of the essence if, depending on how things move forward, but we've got to get it designed to even start the process, so.
And I can work with the budget office for that funding again, if that's something that the board
Okay.
agrees
So I think it's at this point just head nods to move forward, because then it would come to us as a final contract.
to. Right, and to put the advertise RFQ, there's a process to bring that back before you, but we get to work on that.
Going to move forward with the design anyway, see what we're looking at.
Okay, it looks like you've got 3 head nods.
Right.
Just want to say thank you again for coming and presenting, and appreciate the partnership.
Absolutely. No, thank you very much. Appreciate your time and support.
Yeah, thank you for your time. It's
Okay.
great to see all of you.
Yeah, business.
I know. Okay, before we get to Commissioner French, yours, we have one more item that's on miscellaneous. There's a proclamation that has been requested in the matter of proclaiming May 1st through 7th, 2022, the National Correction Officers and Employees Week. Just want to make sure that we're all okay to move that forward.
Lock in on that.
We will do that, so we can bring that forward. And then we have still have a schedule. This is awesome. Okay, Commissioner French, you have miscellaneous.
So last week, I had the opportunity to meet with Tony Lodge and her senior team at the Native Project. And it was an interesting meeting. I mean, she made one comment where we're going to be confirming it here, hopefully yet today, that based upon the 2020 census, that the Native American community now is our largest community of color in the county, population-wise, which was a fact. Well, it's a statement I was not aware of. We're trying to identify, if that's accurate or not. I mean, it's whether it's the Hispanic community or Native American community. She said there's over 340, 350 tribes represented here in Spokane County from across the country and stuff. And so it was interesting because Native American Project, from their health clinic serves all of that population and stuff. And so what she was leading up to was a request for ARP funding to contribute to a youth substance abuse treatment facility that they want to build next to their health clinic. And so I hooked her up with Jeff McMorris and said, you need to work up whatever it is that you want to come forward with through Jeff and stuff. And so I think they've made that connection and stuff. The other part of the conversation was when we might be able to seat her representative on the health district board. And I said, well, you understand the challenge we have is with the legislation, and it's unclear as to what the intent is in terms of whether it's one individual representing all the tribes or each tribe has their own individual representing them and stuff. And so until we get clarity around that, it's difficult to try and move forward. And I said, it's very frustrating for the board because we had an expectation that back in January we'd be able to move forward, and that hasn't happened, but not for a lack of desire or effort on behalf of the board. And she said, well, basically you have a significant part of this community that has not got a seat at the table. can you at least provide a seat at the table, even if it's an ex officio position? Just so that you can hear from this part of the community. And I said, well, that's an interesting perspective. Let me take it back to the board and talk about it. So, so I'm bringing it back just for conversation. If in fact that does represent the largest part of our communities of color, then maybe there's a good argument for them to be at the table. They certainly represent sovereign nations, and I think that was one of the intents of the original legislation and stuff. So so I'm just bringing it back for conversation as to whether it's something we want to consider or not, and stuff. So
So is it our choice? So having an ex officio member might be the Board of Health's decision, or is it our decision?
Well, that's a great question, and I don't know that I've got the answer to that. Mr. McLean,
Mark?
is that a decision that we make in the composition of the board, or is that a decision the board makes?
The county commissioners will set the composition of the health board, but we have provided some legal review on this, and I've sent it to you again under a separate email, just so you have that.
On this specific topic?
The topic of the tribal membership and what that should look like and how the legislation worked out. So I'm happy to share more if you'd like.
Well, I guess the question is, if we do an ex officio member, is that's to me, that's the Board of Health's decision and their bylaws versus the county commissioner's decision. That's the piece I'm confused about.
Well, I think I can't answer this on the fly. I'd have to take some more time and think about it. But my memory is that the Board of Health, the Board of County Commissioners does the makeup of the Board of Health. So that's kind of where I would be leaning to start. But I'm happy to circle back with you and after I get some research here.
Okay.
Yeah. Commissioner Kearns just brought up the 2020 census, and that statement is inaccurate. It is the Native American community is not the largest population in communities of color. It's actually, go ahead, Josh.
I'll just read it off here, how it's written on the Census Bureau's page. It says white alone percentage 88.9, Black or African American alone percentage is 2%, Hispanic or Latino percent 6.1, 2 or more races is 4.2, Asian alone percent is 2.4, American Indian, Alaskan Native alone percent is 1.8.
Yeah, so that's new information I did not have when I met with them and stuff, and I took their statement on face value. So given that, maybe that's not an appropriate request. I mean, the only argument then would be the sovereign nation argument. So anyway, just for conversation purposes, not campaigning, just bringing it forward for a discussion.
Well, and I can see it as until the other issue is settled, having an ex officio. But if we appoint one, are we going to have other tribes wanting us to appoint, since it is supposed to be the Native American Medical Association?
American Indian Health Commission.
American Indian Health Commission is supposed to be the one choosing to appoint. That I just feel like, So Mark, we'll have you look a little bit more into that, and we can talk about it maybe next week.
Okay.
But my concern is we're in the same position where it's the American Indian Health Commission is tasked with picking one person to serve on the health board. Based on what I've seen, they seem to not want to pick just one person. So now it's up to us to pick one person to represent that voice. And it's like, the way the bill was written was it's the American Indian Health Commission to appoint one person, I think the ball is in their court. And I think they need to appoint one person. I mean, that's their duty. I mean, us saying ex officio, we'll pick the one person. What if we pick one person for that ex officio and the American Indian Health Commission picks somebody different than the person that's at ex officio? Do we now kick the ex officio person off? Now we're pitting two individuals against each other. I mean, or if we appoint somebody as ex officio, are we giving them a leg up to get that appointment by the American Indian Health Commission? Because they'll say, well, I've sat through X number of meetings, I'm already up to speed, so I should be appointed. I mean, so I don't know if that's something we want to get in the middle of.
So I've met my obligation in that I brought it back to you guys. Now it's your problem. Thank you very much. Let me know what you decide. No, it just, because it's confusing from the legislative standpoint. This just represents that ongoing confusion. So thank you at least for having a conversation.
No, well, and I don't even think it's confusing from a legislative.
Yeah, I was just
standpoint.
gonna
It says-
say that
it says
too. It's pretty cut and
Letter
dry.
A representative needs to be, so,
Yeah.
so I think until that's settled between the state and the
American Indian Health Commission.
Health Commission, then, that's their issue.
It's their fight, not ours.
We would love to have a full board.
Yeah.
That has always been our intent, and not to, do anything. And just, it was the Native Project that's their board passed a resolution appointing somebody. It was not the American Indian Medical Association doing that. So
Essentially what they did was their resolution, if anything, it was making their nomination to the American Indian Health Commission. So.
Well, once again, legislation coming out of Olympia is very confusing and hard to comply with. And no matter what your efforts are, you're going to be wrong. So
we are trying.
we're trying.
We dream of a world where legislators actually listen to those people that
Or
are
actually
impacted
know what the
by
heck they're doing.
legislation.
I
Yes.
don't know, just putting it out there.
And I think that's, Charlie Duranona, does represent the, Hispanic, the Latinx population. So we do have, a person of color, of that color, that is on our board, representing that population, which is, what did you say in the census?
6.1, actually the largest.
The largest
Community
Yeah.
of color.
So,
Yes.
so I am excited that we do have that representation on our board.
Yeah.
So, okay, thank you.
Here to serve.
Okay, any other miscellaneous items to come before the board today?
I have a couple things, Commissioner.
Okay, Jeff.
Just one thing, I wanted to make sure the three of you were aware that Governor Inslee vetoed Senate Bill 5901.
Yeah.
You may have already seen that. We had supported that and he didn't like it, so he vetoed it. Not good for our manufacturing. And then just a quick update on the congressional directed spending, CDS, which is the new name for earmarks. We did get all three requests into Senator Cantwell's office last week. Right as I was submitting them, she extended her deadline until this Friday. So all three of them are now this coming Friday the 15th. But we do have the Craig Road, which you already discussed. The three letters of support are from the airport, the city of Medical Lake, and S3R3. We're expecting one more letter from Airway Heights. The Avista Stadium upgrades, which is another request. We have letters of support from GSI, Spokane Sports, and we've been told we'll receive one from the tribe of Spokane Indians. There was a large funeral last week, which has slowed that down. We hope to get it this week. The third request we're putting in is Hatch Road Project. And from there, we have the Spokane Youth Sports Association and the Spokane Indians Youth Baseball have both written letters of support, as there's new ball fields out there they hope to use. We also have a letter from Doug Chase in Parks for that one, which isn't a true third party, but he wrote a really good letter. So I submitted it in the optional third position. You have to have at least 2 letters from third parties for each congressional directed ask. So all 3 of these will go in this week to each of the 3 offices, the 2 senators and the member of Congress.
Thank you. Appreciate all your efforts on that. I know it was a kind of a quick turnaround for all of us. So any other miscellaneous items? Oh, Commissioner French.
This is not a miscellaneous item. It's a request for executive session for the purposes of discussing pending or potential litigation.
Okay.
Probably take about 15 minutes and just include the 3 commissioners on our senior management team.
Okay.
No action to be taken.
So it is 10:07. We will be going into executive session. I'm gonna say it'll probably be 10:10 before we get into executive session for the Zoom people that are on Zoom. And so we'll be in executive session from 10:10 to 10. Well, we're gonna say 10, yeah, 10:30, you think? 10:30. Okay, so we'll go into executive session to discuss pending and potential litigation. It'll be all 3 commissioners, our executive management team, and no actions will be taken as we come out. And then we will adjourn for the day at that point. And we'll be joined by Mark McLean, our civil attorney.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We will see everyone tomorrow.